the session Components of Information System. We are also going to discuss about information system resources and activities. We have 5 components of information system to be discussed in this session: the software resources, hardware resources, network resources, data resources, and people resources. Now, in any information system, each of these 5 components play a major role. We have already understood an information system is a combination of input, processing, and output cycle with multiple input, storage, processing, and output devices. And if you look at this diagram, the information system activities in the core, like the control of system performance and storage of data resources, which becomes the core activity in any information systems. Now, information systems needs to be built quite efficiently for organizations. The reason is organizations today are dependent on the data, the information which is generated in their day-to-day business. And they have to consistently look at these data patterns to understand the movements of the data, the way it is processed, and what output is thrown out of that whole systems. Now, let us take the help of this diagram to discuss further how these components play an important role. We have software resources. Now, in any information system, the most intangible component is the software part. Now, when we understand the software resources, it is going to be easy to also understand how the information system activities are dependent on it. In software resources, we have programs and procedures like application programs and system programs, or in other language, a set of programs which is useful for the system by itself to perform activities, which is called as the system software. Now, in last session we discussed how different types of operating systems or system softwares play a major role in defining the processes which is very important for the business activities. Maybe the type of technology what they choose is having a direct influence on the type of information systems they want to build. When we look at the general purpose application programs, like it could be a word processor, a spreadsheet package, or a web browser, these are some of the common software packages, or better say application packages, which are commonly used in small, medium, big, or any type of industries. Not even only for business, these applications are used even in personal and day-to-day activities of an individual. To understand the role of information systems, we will take the example of a hospital or healthcare management system. Now, we were talking about software resources. Now, is it the same set of softwares what we use on a personal computer be useful on the hospital systems? Definitely not. For a hospital or a healthcare setup, we need different kind of applications. So there are application service providers who can design a customized application software which might be useful for the front desk person who is entering the patient records, or an application which is useful for the doctor, or an application which is useful for the pharmacist to understand the medicines prescribed. So a software package here needs to also have the ability of communication. Now, this is the reason we said every component in the information system is interrelated and connected. The system resources need to talk with the network resources to enable data resources flow and to go and reside on the hardware resources. Now, it is such a sequential process from one component to another component, but that is how it enables the business activity. Now, these days, these software or building an application software is also simplified with the help of software as service providers, or what we call it as SAS or SaaS. They make the task easy by providing the software services required by the business entities. Now, when we look at hardware resources, it is all about the machines and the media. Now, in every information system, we need hardware components to experience the data flow, the working or the output. Now, some of the commonly used hardware devices are the laptops, monitors, keyboard, printer, speaker. Now, these are some generic hardware devices. Now, in the healthcare setup example what we were discussing, we need to have a different type of hardware components. Now, the hardware resources required in a healthcare setup should be not only the generic range of computers, handheld devices, microcomputers which enable storage, processing and network, but it should have the special ability to scan, diagnose, read the medical requirements. Hence, you need to have a projection of a screen or reading device which is integrated with that medical software. Now, moving ahead, we also see different kinds of hardware which are specially designed for the healthcare setup. Now, this is not only for the healthcare setup, every business requires a different kind of hardware and software designing. Now, moving next, we have network resources. In network resources, it's all about communication media and network support. It consists of various control softwares which enable data transmission, flow, control, access, authentication over a network. So, there is a network infrastructure restricted, or rather say authentication of confidential information about health. Now, when we are talking about the healthcare as an example, as an information system, we need to understand the data which has been shared over these network needs to be secured and privacy should be maintained. Let us say a patient's information which is being stored in multiple places needs to be secured or be accessed only by the respective person. Maybe the attendant who is coming with the patient needs to have access, but they should not be able to understand the intricacies of the report. Now, the disease or the diagnosis or the mentionings in the report might be required only by the doctor, or it might be required by the nurse who is administrating certain medicines on the patient. Now, from all this point, we need to understand at some time the data needs to be reflected to particular user, and it might be confidential or it might be allowed to be visible to the user based on certain situations. Let us say the patient should take the medicine. In such a situation, it should enable the message reflection on the patient's device, maybe simple mobile or an email message or an SMS. Now, a network is not restricted only like internet or intranet or inside that premises. It's beyond that, enabling round the clock services. So network resources play an important role in connecting all this data, hardware, software and people resources. We next have people resources. Now when we talk about people resources, it could be the end users, like the beneficiaries of the information system, who could be the employees, managers, customers or any other stakeholders who perform day-to-day tasks and make decisions in the business scenarios. Now it also consists of information system specialists like system analysts, developers or programmers who design these programs, database administrators who look into the data management systems each and every day, ensuring data security and integrity, network administrators who oversee the network infrastructure, ensuring smooth communication and connectivity, IT support staff who provide assistance to users, troubleshoot issues and ensure systems function effectively. Now, we were discussing about the software resources, hardware resources and network resources, people resources. There's something very important which we need to understand in this whole components of information system which gets generated by the day-to-day activity. Now that is data resources. Now when you look at this chart, we understand data might be stored inside a record or data might be generated when a transaction occurs, or maybe data is generated when nothing is happening, like the data is still. Even at such situation, the data needs to be resided, procured or stored in some point, and as and when it is required, the data needs to be retrieved. Now how does this creation of data occur? It starts with the first step. In the case of example what we are discussing, healthcare management system, when the patient walks into the hospital or checks the hospital app or checks the hospital website, today we have data capturing techniques which will tell who visited the website and enables us to capture the basic informations provided they haven't secured that information flow. Like we would be able to capture the email IDs or the phone numbers as they cross the path of the website or the mobile application of that healthcare management system. So the patient who visits for regular checkups, or a patient who is an outpatient, or a patient who is a new visitor, in all these situations the data is generated for different reasons. If he is coming for the regular checkup, he or she needs to be directed to the doctor. Now the data of the doctor's schedule is also required to allot that patient. Now we also need to understand at some point there is no data existing at all in this case. So the first step of data creation is most important to build the next business activities, or what we call like customer relationship management, in this case the patient treatment. And the data needs to be stored securely. And what is the different type of data which is getting generated at different points? Until now we were talking about business information systems and healthcare management setup where data is generated by a patient, a doctor, a nurse. There could be data which is existing like the hospital assets, properties, the number of beds, or the inventory of the medicine available. It could be anything as such. Now each and every data is important at some point to make particular decisions. Now before we conclude, let us just take a quick look at the diagram which shows us what are the set of activities which are happening in the healthcare system. We see like multiple devices are there, an hospital is there, patients, doctors, pharmacists, and there is also like insurance party. Even a simple thing like a watch is represented there to show like smartphones, watches, house, medicine. All of these components fall into one of these 5 resources what we discussed, like hardware, software, data, network, or people. Now at each point there is connectivity. That is something what we need to understand, which enables data flow, the network activities which enable the data flow. So today smartphones have enabled the information systems to function more efficiently and effectively. Now with this we conclude this example. So let us take another example, a bank, where we will understand how the same set of information system components vary and the type of devices what is chosen in that business setup might be different. The software packages and the type of people, the way the data is treated, everything is different. Now if you look at the diagram, you understand a customer is entering at the security and there is a security check, which might not be the case in the earlier example what we discussed. Now in a bank setup, security means totally different and confidentiality is at a different level when a customer is transacting with his account details. Now you see the customer there is interacting. In the second point you see at a cash counter, a customer is interacting with the bank staff. So the bank staff and the customer are interacting and you see a computer there where the staff is trying to key in the details. And there is also a manager at the back end process who might not be visible in the process. And then there is also another back end process, maybe a customer service or somebody who is there to help the customer. Now in this whole process we need to understand there are multiple number of people within that business setup who are performing different types of activities, enabling to generate different types of functions or activities which generate different data. Now this all is also connected to the network. Now if we have to summarize what are the set of hardware components used in the bank, we saw an ATM machine, a computer, an automatic telling machine. Now in case of bank, maybe a customer is allowed to see the screen and grab the data. While in case of hospital, there might not be a requirement of a visual display unit for a patient. Similarly, in case of bank, a receipt is given. In case of hospital, prescriptions, medical reports are generated and given. Now the data resources generated there are connected to the business activities around. And the type of network, in case of hospital, the data needs to be reflected on multiple parties' screen. Let us say like when the patient walks into the reception counter, that data needs to be reflected on the doctor's screen for the doctor to understand which patient is walking in. Whereas in case of bank, the cashier or the receptionist might really not be concerned to understand who will this bank customer next go to. They might complete the transaction, close it, and the customer might leave the bank. And the CRM part, the customer relationship part in case of bank is totally different from the hospital. But the concept of CRM is existing in both, which enables them to collect the data of the customer, the patient or the bank account holder. Now what we need to understand is the type of people who create this information systems also vary. They come with the precise domain knowledge like an IT analyst, developer, engineer. This set of teams might be expert in hospital or healthcare management, whereas in case of a bank, it might be another set of information system specialists. So we call them as the domain experts. Now when we look at this particular table, we will also understand the set of people resources, software resources, hardware resources, network resources and data resources, which we would have summarized until now in our discussion. Take a look at the table and understand in case of network resources, it also has like data centers, communication systems, wireless networks, something which we did not discuss till now like a disaster recovery and backup system, which is very, very important for all information systems. And on data resources, we have like risk management data and fraud detection and prevention data, which is very important to ensure security in the banking transactions. Now, with both the examples, we have understood the information system components are same, but there might be different varieties within these components. Like we said, hardware devices for a hospital is different from hardware device in a bank. So every business setup requires a different type of information system components specifically designed to enable their functionality. These information systems needs to be built strategically for long-term business success, else the data generated won't get processed into information which helps the timely decision. Now let us just take a quick look at some interesting facts. Now these are some of the major IT consulting firms, some of the hardware manufacturers, the top 10 IT consulting firms in India 2023-24. You can go through the list and the references for this session. Now before we conclude, let us take a quick highlights of this session. In this session, we discuss the components of information system. The 5 basic components of an information system are software resources, hardware resources, network resources, data resources, and people resources. We also discussed how the input, processing, and output activities are the core for facilitating data processing and storage in the middle of information system activities. In the next session, we are going to discuss the classification of information systems. Thank you.